for you. Oh, please set them free.
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, this morning Radio Ansaar brings you historic special editions covering what is now being called the world's largest solidarity movement. Yes, the global march to Gaza. This is not just a march, it is a global awakening, a collective heartbeat of humanity, rising together beyond borders, beyond races, beyond religions, from the shores of Tunisia and Egypt to the cities of America, Canada, and to the corners of South Africa, India, Singapore, China, Russia, Denmark, Holland. People are standing united. They are marching for truth. They are marching for justice. They are marching for humanity. They are marching for Gaza. And they are calling for the board of Rafah to be open so that aid, hope, and humanity can reach those who need it the most. This movement will not be forgotten. It will be remembered in the books of history as the day the world said, enough is enough. Together we stand with Gaza. Together we become the voice of the voiceless. Yes, international activists halted near Rafah. This global march to Gaza, an international coalition of around 4,000 activists from 80 plus countries, began marching to Arisha on the 15th of June, aiming to reach the Rafah border crossing to establish a 3-day protest camp and demand humanitarian access. However, Egyptian authorities have blocked the advances. Security forces detained or deported more than 200 foreign nationals, especially Europeans, North Africans, and Americans, citing lack of permits and national security concerns. Checkpoints were set up around 30 kilometers from Ismaila. Eyewitness reports indicate security forces intercepted buses and marched. Some activists held passports, confiscated, many deported, not able, detainees and deportations. Irish delegates T.D. Paul Murphy and Jess Spear were detained and released after embassy intervention. Phones were reportedly withheld, passports later returned. Activists from Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, Canada, and Spain were also detained or deported. Over 88 removed to Istanbul, around 100 awaiting deportation. In Libya, a convoy of 1,000 was blocked near Sirat. Tunisian and Algerian influencers were detained. Response from Egypt and Israel. Cairo maintains prior authorization is required to approach Rafah due to security protocols. Egyptian officials portray the protesters as endangering Sinai region stability and insist on strict border controls. While the Israel's defense minister, Katz, has threatened military intervention if Egypt fails to prevent marches reaching Gaza. Humanitarian dimension on the ground. While protests continues, Rafah city remains desperately impacted. Israeli forces maintain heavy positions just inside Gaza, preventing displacing of civilians from returning, continuing strikes near the Egypt border. Well, Assalamu alaikum, I'm Sumaya Khan. Yes, this is not school matters, but this is a special edition of the movement that's happening right now in Gaza. Every minute, every hour, there is something which is breaking news that's happening currently at the movement, at the site, and what's going on at the border of Rafah. Our first guest who we are going to link up very soon will be Sister Hasina Gori. This is quite sad right now around the world, regardless of your race, regardless of your religion, your culture. This is not, something to do with religion. This is something to do with humanity. And, when you sit back and you really think about it, babies, children, adults, the elderly, your homes, your families, every single thing is being destroyed, is totally being taken away from you. How would you cope? What would you do? And, this is totally inhumane. Solidarity protest was held in Sweden for Gaza, where activist Berg is taking part after being released from Israeli custody. She has been kidnapped along with other activists aboard, the Madeleine ship, which was on its way to break the siege on Gaza by Swedish authorities. And demonstrations in Sweden in solidarity with Gaza depicting activist Greta, released after being kidnapped with other activists on board the ship, that was heading to break the siege on Gaza. The march to Gaza, 15th June, that's today. Everywhere around the world, people are doing their own protest marches. And the thousands of people from around the world, activists, government officials, individuals, and people just for the love of humanity and who are so deeply, upset of what's going on. That includes all of us, are taking a stance that we, the people, globally, will be the only hope of stopping this. So, in London, millions
on. Israel is still not being held accountable. Just this weekend, we were watching it bomb over 5 different countries, and in Gaza itself, I think it's at least 2 different areas where there's active, sieges and bombings happening and taking place and attacks taking place. So for me, I feel as a global citizen, we need to be doing a lot more. We're seeing it growing across the globe, as you mentioned, London, but also yesterday in Cape Town, there was a silent march in Istanbul outside the Egyptian consulate. We've seen people march to call for the Egyptian authorities to allow this convoy in. And I think that we need to continue to put pressure, but also to call for tangible action, not just the humanitarian aid to be allowed in, for the actual ending of Israel's action against Palestine.
Would you say this is anything to do with politics, which can influence what's going to happen and what will not happen?
Definitely. And I think that when we look at what happened in Cairo itself specifically, we need to look at it from a lens of where it's based, but also Israel's tactics that it puts across the neighboring countries. So the politics of it is that Israel has threatened Egypt that if they do not stop the march from taking place, they do not stop these groups from landing in Al Arish and getting into Al Arish, which is in the Sinai area, which is a military point, and also a highly disputed area that Israel is also trying to get its hands on to move the Palestinian peoples into that area. That if they do not do that, firstly, they will ensure that the marches will be stopped with whatever necessary action is needed. Israel says that it's a threat to its sovereignty, it's a threat to its safety, and that those that are taking part in it are not just doing it for humanitarian aid, but also doing it because they are aligned to the ideology of Hamas, which is the usual rhetoric that they put in for anyone who supports the Palestinian cause, but also said that they will then bring military action against Egypt. And I think given the region, given that area, most countries are concerned. We're seeing what happens to all the bordering countries in Syria, the Golan Heights, in the south of Lebanon, and Iran as well, in Yemen, all areas that have stood in support. And we've seen Jordan and Egypt really trying to not get pulled into the war. But when it comes to humanitarian aid in their own way, we know that most of the refugees from Palestine from 1948 onwards are located in many of the neighboring countries. So it's really, I think, politics playing its part, but also countries trying to ensure that they keep their own communities safe as well.
Do you know, right now, I mean, the hour which just passed, an hour or two, everyone's in shock that Iran has the support of Saudi Arabia. Is it true? Is it just talk?
I think at this stage it's going to be a wait and see. We know that a lot of the times, most countries, what they say outside publicly versus what's happening in back doors, it's also, I really think, a play of self-preservation. So while many support the Palestinian cause, the Iranian cause, in backdoor, engagements when it comes to face fronting, but we've seen Saudi Arabia really shifted from being a close ally of the United States, from being one that completely always aligned with the United States. We've seen a shift. They've been added to the BRICS in the last year or so. So really a shift in the geopolitics. We've seen the global south rise. So it's quite an interesting time to see how these alignments and allegiance grow given this onslaught of Israel. Israel, has been that little area in the middle that is terrorizing, if you can say, the entire region. And without it, you might see some kind of peace and stability that we have not seen in the last, I think, 3-4 decades. So really a wait and see. And I think that we need to allow this process to unfold itself before we actually understand the whole picture.
Yeah. Do you know, when you think about it, this is the time when we get to see world leaders, government officials, embassies, leadership. What's going to happen? Are we going to constantly be with Israel, or now we're going to slowly back down and join the majority who are for humanitarian aid and those who want this to stop? What's your opinions on that?
Definitely, because what we've seen also is countries like France saying, calling for the United States and Israel to stop its bombing on Palestine. We've seen other countries come on and support. So really realizing that it's not financially or fiscally, good for a country to be aligned. We've seen that boycotts and sanctions taking place that are actually affecting the bottom line, but also that what we need to realize in a lot of the European countries, that those expats and those that had moved are now citizens of those countries. They are now in places of power as well and are able to have these conversations at levels and have access to make decisions. And we're going to see that play out. We're seeing it, throughout. If you just look at the United States and then you look at the UK, you've seen immigrants that are, holding positions of power, that are, fighting for mayorships, for premiers, and that changes the dynamics of how politics is done, because before it was always run by a certain group, a certain race, a certain class. So we might see a shift completely, that it's, as we saw when apartheid ended in South Africa, that it was not fiscally viable for apartheid to continue. It wasn't being supported as much as it was before, and that it had to end, and hopefully we see that in our lifetime again, not just in Palestine, but in Sudan, Congo, and in all the other countries that are still going and facing onslaughts.
The summit convoy, Arabic for steadfastness, is made up of a diverse coalition. Who exactly are these individuals? Is this a political movement or something broader?
I think it's a broader movement. It's a collective calling for, I think, the end of the siege. But also, if you look at the politics and the geopolitics of the Northern Africa, it's a uniting that you really see. Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya coming together within that North African area, that Maghreb area, coming together in support of the Palestinian cause, but also putting pressure on their own North African counterpart, Egypt. The last I had seen, they were still stuck at the borders, not being allowed into the area. So not politics, but really an activism that is being done, a humanitarian part. And I think that for us to see tangible change, we need to ensure we're putting pressure on both, not just the humanitarian alone. It cannot be just allow aid into Gaza, because we know even when it comes to the aid, we've seen those visuals of children fighting over a bag of flour. And we hear from the people of Palestine, and specifically the Gazans, that when they're sending in that aid, that they're sending in shrouds more than anything else. They're just sending in coffins into that area. That beyond that, we need to see tangible calling for our governments to put pressure. We've seen it in South Africa, that we've seen our government take them to the ICJ. We've seen the first time that Israel is really being called to account for itself, but we need to see it on a bigger scale, and from more voices and from more governments and authority telling Israel that there are, global diplomacies and laws that are in place, and they are contravening them, and that they need to be held accountable. They cannot keep using the excuse that they're allowed to self-defense, and that they are just the innocent victim in this entire scenario, and that they are the perpetrators, and they are the ones that are causing that harm and need to be held accountable for it.
Do you know, being South African and knowing our history of apartheid, and knowing the struggles, the challenges, the change of leadership, our country has faced, many South Africans, I'm stereotyping here, are still not really involved. They are still out of the box, and many still feel that this is still a religious thing. And it's quite, sad when you discuss or have conversation with other religions and cultures, especially with the churches. Not all, I'm stereotyping, because I know when there was a protest not very long ago with the comrades, we had comments, oh, this is a religious thing. But now this is where this comes into place. From a South African perspective, why is it important that the ordinary man, the ordinary person, the ordinary citizen, not just governments, show up for Gaza? Can you simplify that to our listeners out there?
I think as South Africans, we need to remember that, yes, while it might seem on a very surface level that this is a religious fight between two religions, that this is colonialism still in action. This is still the empire in action. And we, as a country that faced the wrath of the colonizer, that is still, building itself up post-apartheid, that we still see that legacy of apartheid in the daily spatial, landscapes of our country, in the way education is, that we should be supporting those that are still victim of colonialism. And this is colonialism in action. And if we remember that, and also remember that our founding fathers, Nelson Mandela was a proud supporter of Palestine. He said enough times that our liberation is not complete without theirs. And it said that for Cuba, for those in Western Sahrawi as well. And these are, some of the fights and the causes that we as South Africans should hold close to us, because of anyone else. We understand, we have had lived experience. People that are still living in South Africa that have went through, that remember apartheid, that remember having to carry a dom pass, remember not being allowed in spaces. And this is the exact same thing. Does not matter how Israel tries to whitewash it, how they try to PR campaign it and show it as if it's not a apartheid. I know that they do a lot of tours and trips where they take South Africans into those areas and then show them their version. But that is being done while excluding and completely ignoring that meters away from where they are, bombings are happening on stolen land, and those that from that land have been removed, and that entire country is built on somebody else's history, somebody else's traditions, somebody else's complete livelihood that is being completely erased and adopted by Israelis. We as South Africans, we understand that in our cellular level. And if anything else, we should be the loudest, and we've seen it with our government. It needs to be continuously propelled and projected. And I know from a religious point of view, Christianity, there seems to be some of their scriptures that seem to align them to believing that that land is Jews. But I've seen it change. We're seeing that slowly with conversations, with continuous conversations of education, that people are understanding that this is not really the case. And honestly, sometimes when it comes down to the Israel-Palestinian issue, it's a PR game as well. And what Israel always had was held the monopoly of the conversation. They did not allow journalists into the area. They always, created a lot of scrutiny around any kind of comment that came out of Palestinians. They labeled them as liars. They labeled them as people that exaggerated. They said that this is all scripted, and we're seeing that change over time, and we need to just continue doing that and do it from a very educational point of view. And I think that we are seeing slowly people understanding that this is not just a religious issue, but that there are Christians and Jews and Muslims that live in the Gaza Strip, that live in Palestine. And if you are of any of the Abrahamic religions, you should have affinity to the people of Palestine.
Sister Hasna Gori, Jazakallah so much for taking the time to link up with us and impart your happenings. Inshallah, looking forward to have you back linking up with future updates. Assalamu alaikum.
Shukran. Wa alaikum salam.
That was our guest Hasina Gori, a senior journalist with the SABC. Yes, she was giving us first-hand info, what's happening. We will be taking a short nasheed break and we will get back.
Radio Ansaar, Durban, 90.4 FM. Peter Maritzburg, 105.6 FM.
Audio stream across the world on radioalansar.co.za.
أمل خلف الأسوار يتسلل بين النار، ذرعت فيه الآلام بعزيمته أعصار، وتسامى بالإيمان الصادق بل كالمارد صار، بثبات رغم سكات وصمود رغم ضمان. لا تبالي غزة، تحلي بالعزة وتحدي كل حصان. لا تبالي يا غزة، تحلي بالعزة وتحدي كل حصان. إنا لا نلقي بالا لا للآلام، فتدابير الأيام ستداوينا وتعيد جراح اليوم لعادينا. يا غزة ما هنتي رمز العزة كنتي، كلا بل ما زلتي. يا غزة ما هنتي رمز العزة كنتي، كلا بل ما زلت هل تبالي يا أنسان وتحلى يا بالعزة تحدي كل حصار.
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, this is a special edition, the Global March to Gaza. It's live coverage and updates with our top guest journalists and people who are currently there and making the way there. The largest solidarity movement in history. Alhamdulillah, we have brothers and sisters who want to be part of this as South Africans and who are also visitors in South Africans and citizens. You know, we have Sister Zora Suleiman, who is on air right now, who's linking up with us. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you this Sunday morning?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, good.
Sister Zora, there's so much happening right now with everything, just going on, and everyone's waiting to see what the outcome will be. What is your views and opinions on this?
So for me, I'd like to pitch it more at a metaphoric level, more reflecting about this. I know that there's 80 countries that participated in this. They've got there. They were turned back. Some of them were detained and some of them were deported. From what I hear from the South African group, that they were told to go back and some of them were just dropped off randomly at places. And they must just find their own way back to the hotel or back to the center of Cairo. But I've spoken to someone now by WhatsApp, and they said that, look, it's quite tensed over there. There's a lot of police surveillance, and they're scared to talk or to say much. But a lot of them are leaving. I think there's about 4 of them arriving today around lunchtime. And these are all from the different subgroups, like the Palestinian Solidarity Movement, and then I think some from the MJC. There's others like Yusuf Chitte. I think he's also from one of the Palestine movements and things like that. So a lot of them are arriving today, and I think over the next few days. But as I said, I would like to pitch this at a more reflective level. So I think it's for me, it's more from war to witness, where the powers that be have chosen to turn their face the other way and have been complicit in this war. Civil action and the civil movement have chosen to change it from war to becoming witness, to letting the world walk towards the reality of Palestinians in solidarity with them. And this is a new counter narrative. It's not about violence. The war so far has just been, the genocide has just been about war, violence, destruction, disrespect, no dignity. And this is, it's more about bearing witness to human suffering, shifting it from a polar debate to moral conscious and moral clarity.
Egypt is a strategic gatekeeper. Many fear the march may never reach Rafah. What challenges, are organizers and aid workers facing right now on the ground?
What challenges are organizers and aid workers?
Yes, facing right now on the ground.
So you know that the Rafah border, although it is open, but it's a highly surveillanced area. And we know that this is one of their strategies to not let the aid go in. There are trucks that's full of aid. There's warehouses out of Rafah that's lying with stocks of goods from countries around the world. And it's just one of their strategies to not let the aid trickle in, because one of their aims is to let the people starve. It's another ammunition. It's another means of killing people. And so aid is not trickling in. For us, from gift of the giver's perspective, we try, from the time that the war has started, we've been, constantly and continuously getting goods in, even if it was in short supply, even if it wasn't the whole range of goods, but we have been trying to get whatever we can get our hands on. Our teams are there. So from Cairo, even from around Jordan, Israel, we're buying what we can and taking it in as, and reaching as many people as we can under the situation. Sometimes it's not safe for our teams to go around, but they do what they can to the best of their ability.
Okay. Sister Zora, with dozens of activists detained and deported, including Algerian, Dutch, and South African nationals, what does the crackdown reveal about how states are responding to peaceful action?
Well, it to me, it sounds like, you see, what they realize that the people's power is stronger. And what else can they do but censor and use their authoritarianism to crack down and hold people back and suppress them further? Because, they thought that they're just going to work with Palestine. Palestine was a local entity, and Palestine has now become a global entity. It's not just about what's going on inside Palestine. It's now become the moral, people have woken up and said, we will not watch silently. We will bear witness to your suffering, and we will come towards you. And even if some have been deported, some have been detained, they've already crossed the borders in their mind. They may have not crossed it physically, but in that solidarity, they have crossed the borders already psychologically and morally.
Yeah.
So for me, that's I think that metaphor of crossing the borders, although they were physically obstructed.
Let's talk about the food crisis. Aid is being blocked, looted, and weaponized. How is your organization managing to deliver support in such conditions? And how much worse can it get?
So, like I said, sometimes we get calls from families that are here in South Africa who have people there back home. And they'll say that they haven't eaten for days or weeks. And how is it possible for us to reach them? So we work in areas. Look, the Gaza Strip, it stretches across. I think it's about 42 kilometers. So we will work in areas where it's safe to work. Can't be stupid and go in an area where there's, continuous bombarding and shelling. And so, but like I said earlier, we try to buy as much goods. We take it in from Egypt, and we've got warehouses there. We store it. And when it is safe to go out to the different camps and the different tent cities, and their cities are like suburbs, very close to each other. So it just depends where there's more bombing and shelling. We will stay clear of that, and we'll work in other areas where there's a little more quiet and calm. So that is how we get in. And like I said, we try to get in as much as we can to the best of our ability to reach the people. So it will be your basic food items. Sometimes you can't get like maybe blankets, or you can't get mattresses, but at least you might get in some flour. Sometimes you may not be able to get that, then you'll get in maybe some medicines, or some pasta, or some other item. So it's not like you're getting the full range and the full package, but at least you're getting them in dribs and drabs. And that is what's sustaining the people on the little bit that they can get and the little bit that our people can get. When I say our people, I mean our staff who are working on the ground. But let's not forget, our staff are facing the genocide as they are working on the ground with the community. They are also affected. They also get displaced as many times as the rest of the Gazan community gets. So sometimes they can't go out because they themselves are somewhere in limbo, maybe move from their house, or maybe move from one tent camp to another tent camp, because they're constantly getting evacuated.
Sister Zora Suleiman, may the Almighty bless you and your team, and may the gift of the givers grow from strength to strength. And inshallah, looking forward to linking up with you for future updates.
Ameen, ameen, ameen.
Jazakallah. That was...
we can do is make dua for the global, participants of the global march, and that Allah bring them back safely, keep them safe there whilst they are there, and then bring them back safely home.
Jazakallah.
I think this was a huge symbol of our moral conscious solidarity for the people of Palestine. This is not just now confined to Palestine itself. It's now become a tectonic shift to the rest of the world.
Exactly. Jazakallah once again for linking up with us.
Ameen, Jazakallah.
That was Sister Zora Suleiman from the Gift of the Givers, an organization that has been instrumental in delivering aid to war-torn regions, including Gaza. You know, they understand the politics and the pressure behind humanitarian relief. In studio, unplanned, we, alhamdulillah, managed to get our sisters, Aisha Siam, who is from Palestine, and with another sister. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
When you found out that Radio Al Ansar is doing special editions on what's happening right now in your homeland, you definitely said you have to give hope to all your brothers and sisters in Gaza, and also hope to our South African brothers and sisters that they can make a difference. What message would you like to give to the nation globally?
As a Palestinian and as a woman, a mother from born and raised in Gaza and now live in South Africa, I want I just emphasize my feelings when I know that a lady from Sweden on a ship on the sea, she took the risk to sacrifice herself to make sure that 100 kilograms of flour is will enter Gaza. So to know that there is now thousands, I can say now more than 4,001 in Libya and Egypt were ready to go to directly to the borders to Rafah. Thousands, and they take their voices to maybe hundreds of thousands and millions of people all over the world. Finally, Gazans' voices are reaching out. And to put you in what is the conditions there in Gaza and what we need to focus on or to take it out, it just my message always is that we are normal people. We are not heroes.
Yeah.
And we are not the persons that we will welcome death for nothing or for just the food or for no. We always were very strong nation with very big and hopes and dreams, lives, and we worked very hard since the first in 1948, the first time that we lost our lands to build something like home, which was Gaza. But now, after demolishing of whole Gaza and lost everything, we still have just a little hope that our voice will reach everyone outside, that this city deserved life. These people have names, lives, stories, dreams, everything. They have a whole life that they lost everything. Just to give you an idea about that, how they live there now. Just my sister-in-law's son yesterday, Gaza was out of coverage of Wi-Fi for 3 days. Yesterday night just returned back. And I got a chance to call them, and they told me that they took the risk. They go to the places where they distribute aids, and it's only they distribute it in very bad dehumanized way, that they just throw like 400 cartons of aids and then allow people to get it. So it's a big miss, and who get the chance to get the one box of aids will be very lucky. And her son, my sister-in-law's son, managed to get a box. He was very happy, and he fights with other for this box to take a chance to get it. And when they reach home, they find that everything in that box is rotten, rotten and not able even to be used. So this is the situation. You have to sacrifice your life to reach the point where they distribute. And if you are lucky not to be shot by the Israeli Jewish soldiers, you might succeed and get a box, and finally the box is
And this
Even,
is your
yeah.
sister's son. And you.
Yeah, my sister-in-law's son.
Yeah.
He is 17 year, and yeah, and I don't, you know, he sacrificed his life to reach the point of distribution, and finally, that what he gets is can't be used.
Do you know, it's been like almost, I'll say, about 2 years. Tears, do you still shed them, or have you become so resilient and strong where, you know, you just constantly give up hope, or you are still very hopeful?
You can't say that after 2
Yeah.
years of what is happening that they still have the same hope or the same. Even me here,
Yeah.
I can't see a light at the end of the message. It's only maybe what give me just a small light or compensate about the whole genocide that happened is that now, when I tell my story, I find people listening to me or believing me. 10 years ago, I was in Malaysia. When I was just opening my mouth to speak about my story, everybody was telling me that, oh, stop, this is not the truth. This is just your view of the story. But now everybody in the world knows that this is the right story.
Yeah. Sister Siam, Aisha Siam, Jazakallah, you know, taking the time to be here and tell us your story from the ground. We have another sister, a message which you would like to give to your Palestinian brothers and sisters and just to everyone who's out there on the ground.
Okay, so thank you so much first for inviting us here. For me, this march reflects something like far deeper than just the delivery of aid. To be honest with you, it reflects solidarity and resistance, and it reflects finally the voices of the normal people all around the world. So, despite the fact that the march did not succeed in physically delivering aid into Gaza, it succeeded in exposing the barriers, the complicity, and the inhumanity of the systems that block life-saving support from reaching innocent civilians. It laid bare the political hypocrisy of the so-called international community and reminded the world that people are watching, speaking out, alhamdulillah, ordinary people, and refusing to be silent after 2 years of all of this mess. Also, this convoy reflects a powerful collective voices, ordinary people from different backgrounds, different religions, and different ethnicities, risking their safety and challenging the silence for their government, especially the Arabs' governments, unfortunately. It showed that humanity has not died and that millions still care enough to walk, shout, and stand for Gaza. Stand actually for freedom of the most people who deserve to be free nowadays, even when the outcomes is uncertain. It also reflects that moral failure of global leadership. And by the way, I'm one who works for this a global leadership for the rest of for now for 12 years. And the determination of civil society to fill that void. We know that aid truck may have been stopped at borders. We don't know exactly the reasons behind, but the message of the march broke through every wall. Gaza is not alone, and its pain is not forgotten. And this is something very, very important for the international, especially the international community, that despite all the oppression and repression they have, the voices of the ordinary people should be heard and listened at the end of the day. So in short, for me, this march is not measured by what it delivered actually physically, but by what it declared. The global conscience is awake and rising, inshallah.
To both you sisters, Jazakallah, you know, for coming here and taking us, touching us, taking us to the ground and telling us what's going on with your families and what you truly feel. Jazakallah once again for joining
Shukran.
us.
Jazakumullah khairan.
Shukran. Those were our two sisters from Palestine who are giving us coverage of their personal life, their emotions, of their families. Our next guest is Megan Shores, a writer and activist with South African Jews for a Free Palestine, a group that challenges the false binary between Jewish identity and support for Israel's action in Gaza. Welcome to the special edition on Gaza.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know, right now there's so much going on. Over 40 activists, many with European or Western passports, have already been deported. Why do you think human rights advocates are being treated with such hostility?
I think that the system and those in power and those who are in cahoots and collaboration with either the Israeli regime, the Zionist regime, or obviously with economic ties like to the USA, are putting their foot down. And I think that this is not the sentiment of the people. I think that activists are being supported quite widely by the people, as we see in marches all over the world. But the governments are not in line with what the people think and feel, and it's a real challenge.
Do you know, we see international statements, emergency, we see so much going on right now. What do you feel from a writer, from a journalist, from a poet that can bring change?
I think that global solidarity is what can bring change. And I think that the global march to Gaza is an example, as with the Freedom Flotilla, where ordinary people, where civilians have basically said, we can't wait. We've been waiting for too long, and everyone else has paid lip service. And I think even people who write and certainly the mainstream media is not to be trusted on any level, have literally said, now's the time, we have to heed the call. And so I think that while the situation in Egypt has become largely symbolic, it's really taken over the imagination of people. And I agree with your previous guests that nothing's going to get through the Rafah border, but there is a groundswell of hope, of resistance, of activism, and of ordinary people saying, this can't go on, and we will try whatever it is that we can to change it.
One who belongs to the Jewish community, what's your message to those who are still hesitant to speak out, afraid that criticism of Israeli, equates to so much more?
I'm going to be perfectly blunt. We don't have time for that. We don't have time for anyone who's still hesitant. We don't have time for people who are worried about offending their Jewish and Zionist colleagues and friends and being called anti-Semitic. We don't have time. It's nonsense. Judaism has nothing to do with Zionism. We cannot perpetuate that myth any longer, and we've run out of time. It's a nonsense excuse. Currently, the situation is so intense and so untenable that the last thing that we need to worry about is hurting people's feelings. There's a genocide going on, and it's nonsense.
I'd like to thank you for linking up with us and, imparting your poetic words. And as an activist and as a writer, may we continue to link up with you for future updates. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
That was our guest, Megan, a writer and activist, with the South African Jews for Free Palestine. Listeners, we will continue with this special edition. Right now, we are breaking for the news.
Palestine, 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 you will be free. Ya Rabbi, we call you. Oh, please set them free.
An informative Islamic global perspective. This is Ansaar News.
Making news at 11, a 3-day power outage due to a cable fault left Verulam businesses and residents outraged yesterday. Good morning, I'm Tabila Duma. A 3-day power outage due to a cable fault left Verulam businesses and residents outraged yesterday. Johnson Chetty, a Tegwini Ward 106 councillor, said that the Verulam Central Business District has been plagued by rolling mass power outages for a long time. He said that these unannounced outages can vary from 24 hours to several days. Tumza Desai, a property owner, said that power outages occur around the same time every month during the busy periods, adding that they were kept in the dark literally when it comes to the actual problem, location, and why it was occurring. Desai stated that their backup lights only lasted 5 to 6 hours, and this ultimately results in huge losses during already muted trading conditions. He said that businesses wanted to get to the root of the problem. Chetty explained that the cable and allied infrastructure are regularly failing due to a lack of adequate maintenance, leading to severe prejudice to businesses, residents, and even municipal and state institutions in the CBD. He said that he had met with senior management in the electricity department over the years, but the common excuse is a lack of budget for such maintenance. In correspondence seen between the municipality and the councillor on Thursday, the power outage was due to a medium voltage cable fault between the Wick Street substation and the Green Cat substation. 8 substations were also affected along Island Street. According to Chetty, he was informed that the distributor substation and Moss Street substation was being replaced with switch pillars following the failure at the substation. Yesterday, Chetty said that 7 substations in Verulam CBD still remained off. Staying with local news, the National Freedom Party considered the Kingmaker and the KwaZulu-Natal Government of Provincial Unity has recalled its representative in the legislature, Social Development MEC Mbalishinga. The KwaZulu-Natal legislature has confirmed the party has changed its one-person list. KwaZulu-Natal Legislature Speaker Nontombeko Boyce's spokesperson Patti Samfuyo said that they have received a revised list from the leader of the NFP in the legislature and will be submitting it to the internal processes of compliance and ultimately publication. Shinga is the only NFP representative at the legislature, meaning that she's the one who is being recalled. Party President Ivan Barnes will be taking over according to certain sources. A source told the news agency that the factions that pushed the party to the brink of liquidation through an independent electoral commission court case before the May 2024 general elections never went away. Without the NFP single seat, the GPU would have to make do with either the EFF or the MK party for a government to take hold. According to a news agency, a senior party source said that the party is split between 2 factions, one that has rallied behind Barnes and the other led by Shinga and Nongoma Municipality Mayor Clifford Ndabandaba. Meanwhile, the head of dam safety at the Department of Water and Sanitation says the Umtata Dam does not have sluice gates. The dam only has spillways which release water when it reaches a certain capacity, and therefore no one could control the flow of water that led to the flooding. On Monday, the bitterly colder winter storm struck the largely rural and underdeveloped province, causing a river to burst its banks and submerge homes, with several makeshift dwellings toppled. The worst hit area was around the city of Umtata, with 86 reported to have died from the floods. President Cyril Ramaphosa has called for a day of remembrance to be declared to mourn those who have died. Ramaphosa visited the area on Friday. The search for victims continues. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has applauded the police on their successful recovery of 10 AK-47 assault rifles, along with 100 rounds of ammunition, 3 shotguns and a pistol during 2 operations in Port St. John's. 3 people were arrested with a 4th on the run. The police believe that the weapons are related to taxi violence and cash and transit crimes. Mchunu says that a man ran away when the police executed their operations. The firearms and all the ammunition looked new. The minister also issued a stern warning to people who are involved in criminal activities in areas affected by the floods in the Eastern Cape. This follows reports that some people have been looting. Mchunu was addressing the media in Umtata, where he assessed the damage caused by the floods. And finally, Israel launched an expanded assault on Iran today, targeting its energy industry and defense ministry headquarters, while Tehran unleashed a fresh barrage of deadly strikes. The simultaneous attacks represented the latest burst of violence since a surprise offensive by Israel 2 days earlier, aimed at decimating Tehran's rapidly advancing nuclear program. New explosions have boomed across Tehran as Iranian missiles entered Israel's skies in attacks that Israeli emergency officials said caused deaths around the country, including 4 in an apartment building in the Galilee region. A strike in central Israel killed an 8-year-old woman, a 69-year-old woman, and a 10-year-old boy. Casualty figures weren't immediately available in Iran, where Israel targeted its defense ministry headquarters in Tehran, as well as sites that it alleged were associated with the country's nuclear program. Iran's paramilitary Revolutionary Guard claimed that Iranian missiles targeted fuel production facilities for Israeli fighter jets, something acknowledged by Israel. Amid the continued conflict, planned negotiations between Iran and the United States over Tehran's nuclear program were cancelled, throwing into question when and how an end to the fighting could come. Taking a look at temperatures, Durban is at 13 to 23, Richards Bay 17 to 24, Ulundi 9 to 22, Ladysmith 4 to 23, and Margate is at 15 to 23. That's it for now. For Al Ansar News, I'm Tabila Duma.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Khutamul Islam, and you're listening to Radio Al Ansar.
Radio Ansaar.
كي يزول الألم سوف نحيا هنا سوف نحمي الحرم مسجدي 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 ذا الفداء مسجدي 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 يا أنا دمت يا أقصى لنا يا وصية الرسول وعد ربي قد دنا والظلام لن يطول دمت يا أقصى لنا يا وصية الرسول وعد ربي قد دنا والظلام لن يطول قدسنا لن تضام قد قرانا الطبول وامتشقنا الحسام وعرفنا السبيل حاولوا الاقتحام لن يمر المغول وارقبوا الموت الزؤام عاد زحف الرسول يا شباب قدسنا فيكم انقضى الألم فليحيد الغاصبون عمنا لنا الأهم يا طيور الاعتصام حلقي مثل العلم واشهدوا يا مسلمون أننا قلنا القسم أننا قلنا القسم أننا قلنا القسم سوف نبقى هنا كي يزول الألم سوف نحيا هنا سوف نحمل الحرم.
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, we have special edition of what's happening right now in Gaza. Alhamdulillah, we have a script, but Alhamdulillah, we have community members, we have leaders, we have everyone, even brothers and sisters from Palestine who are making the way to the studio and they want their message across. We had sisters from all the way from Gaza who gave the heartwarming, touching news. And in studio right now, we had who just walked in. We have the president of United for Palestine, Brother Abdul Velodia, and the general secretary of United for Palestine, Honorable Imran Subrathi. They came into studio with breaking news that they have direct contact with the people, the leaders responsible for bringing the South African activists back home. Honorable Brother Imran Subrathi, thank you for coming to studio with this vital information and making this show really, make the mark. Can you tell us that who you will be linking up right now with?
Jazakallah, assalamu alaikum, Sumaya, and to your listeners, and thank you so much to Radio Al-Ansar and to yourself and all the content creators. I know I have been sitting and seeing that the guys behind the show have worked very hard to put together a formidable lineup, and thank you so much for accommodating ourselves at UFP. I've been trying very hard to find out what is the current status of the South African activists. My primary concern was, are they safe? Are they properly housed? I was quite concerned about their passports that were taken away, and I was told by Abdul Khalik Ali that it was returned. But I'm very honored that we're going to have, I think we have Professor Yusuf Chikti is on the line. He's based in Cape Town. He's a formidable activist for Palestine, and maybe we'll link up with Professor Yusuf Chikti. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Honorable MP, and I'm very delighted to be here and explain the current situation. We are in touch with the people on the ground over there. So firstly, I think we must take our hats off to the amazing group of South Africans who have gone there and who've tried to break the siege. And it's more than symbolic. And they were harassed and in all kinds of ways. Their passports were taken, they were blocked at checkpoints, but they survived. All, as far as the knowledge that we have, it's all of the passports were returned. Now, there is a situation where some of them are returning on the advice of the South African embassy, and in terms of the limits of what they can do. And we're going to welcome them, and we appreciate the efforts, and we are going to ensure that they carry on the struggle together with us in South Africa in getting the blockade lifted. We also have another situation where a group of people have been called upon by Mandela to stay put. And to if you're not under surveillance, or they haven't grabbed, or the Egyptian secret police haven't grabbed you yet or identified you yet, and if they haven't threatened you yet with deportation, and all that goes with it, they will stay behind for as long as possible. And we salute them for their courage and their actions to stay there. But today we're going to have two delegations, and we are going to ensure that they get a proper welcome in Cape Town and in Johannesburg. Hasina Katrada is arriving in Johannesburg at 1 o'clock at ORT International Airport, and Bashira Sumar who's been spearheading this campaign for the South African delegation. And she's arriving at 2:45. So if your listeners are anywhere near there, or if you want, the radio station wants to interview them, I don't know the details of what's taking the details in the WhatsApp group. So we are, and it's amazing. And I'd like to thank the Honourable MP for his constant support around this, and we must continue to give their support for the rest who are there. Nelson Mandela Mandela is all over the Arabic news about the grandson of Nelson Mandela, his passport being taken away, but he's a very powerful figure. He's part of the traditional leadership in South Africa. He has a kind of power. There are many others who are there. Bravery and reminds me of the bravery of the youth, the 60s, and do some things to ensure that things are happening. But this time, they're dealing something even worse. The military movement was in Egypt, even support at that time. Unfortunately, the new pharaohs of Egypt, they speak with forked tongues. But yes, they block the road to Rafah, but they will never block the people. The global march to Gaza has already shown that the organizing power and the moral clarity of civil society to step in, where governments, international institutions, the UN, and the European Union and the American groups have failed. So we still uniting across borders from different backgrounds and believe to combat the genocide of Israel when governments, especially those who have people who remain silent or complicit. This march was never just about a journey to the border. It's a declaration as been had in 1976 to refuse to resist, to refuse to be complicit. Like Egypt, refused to normalize with the Israelis, and still to accept the salvation of 2.3 million people. And this is how chapter 300 refusing to normalize and ethnic cleansing. Egypt's shameful actions, seizing passports and enforcing acting like the guards for Israel, pushing Israel's siege, exposes the dictatorship that no longer controls even its own borders, but enforces them on behalf of Zionism. This is the first time in the history of Egypt that a regime is not in control of its own borders with the But we will not be broken. We will not be silenced. And our faces the ground wherever they are. We'll continue to mobilize and to organize. South Africa, we are single-minded in organizing across the continents and communities until the siege is lifted. The siege is lifted. We are against the bombing of Iran. We won't allow darkness to go across Gaza and into the blocker. Gaza and Palestine is still the story. And a fight that both the attack on Iran
Professor,
simultaneously.
Prof. Yusuf, let me just come in there. Prof. Yusuf?
Sure, that there's no doubt.
Prof. Jazakallah.
The side, remember those in 1976.
Jazakallah, Professor Yusuf. I think we are breaking off because he's on the ground right now. Jazakallah so much for doing that interview, Brother Honorable Imran Sabrati. That's our General Secretary from UFP. Yes, our next guest who we will be linking up with you, Sister Candy. She is well known on social media. She is responsible for setting goals, saying it the way it is. She is an activist and she is so involved right now. Welcome to our special edition, the March to Gaza. Okay, we are not getting through to Sister Candy. Your views and opinions, someone from coming all the way from Parliament.
Yeah. I think what's very important, firstly, Sumaya, is we must commend these brave South Africans first and foremost for representing our country. It would have been amiss if a South African deployment of those 3,000 was lacking. So alhamdulillah, I mean, when I got a call last week, Tuesday, I was on my way to Parliament. There was an emergency and I was deployed to Parliament. And as I was driving through to Parliament from the airport, I got a call from Maulana Abdul Khalik Ali. And he indicates to me that, Imran, myself and his beloved wife are leaving for the Great March. And I said, subhanallah. In fact, just earlier, before that call, Abdul Valodia had called me and I told to Abdul, Abdul, if I had the means and I didn't have a parliamentary calendar, I would want to be there. And I understood and I knew the risk that it would entail. It certainly entailed risk. It risks your life. It risks various elements of your ability to travel internationally, because now you're putting yourself out there and you would be acknowledged and noted as a person who challenged the status quo of government. But so therefore, we must understand the context in which these brave South Africans went, and we must appreciate. So my call out to all our listeners is that if you're in Johannesburg and if you're in Cape Town at about 1 p.m., make your way through to the Johannesburg International as well as to Cape Town International or Tambo and join a Cape Town International and show your appreciation for these activists who are returning. But what has it exposed? It's exposed. We now understand that their appearance there was largely symbolic, but it's exposed the hypocrisy of the governments around the world. And so may I have a wonderful 1-minute video from a person who is not of the Islamic faith, but he makes an appeal to the Arab leaders. And I think it is something that I really enjoyed. And I saved it for your show. So with your permission, Sumaya, it just takes a minute. I'm just going to play it. Thank you so much.
Where is your heart? I believe that the people of the Arabic nations have a white heart. I believe you're good people for love, for humanity, for Islam. Stand with your Please stand with your Islamic. They welcomed me into their heart. They came to go there as a nurse. They beat me in the desert for feeding starving Islamic children. Where is your calm? Where is your heart? For the love of life and for the love of humanity. The women are trying to feed their dying baby and their breath empty. Do you know what that smells like? Do you know what that sounds like? For humanity and for love. And with your brothers and sisters. I've never seen or experienced anything like it. Please. Thank you. First March in Palestine. Please, you've got to listen to me.
I mean, if this doesn't bring a tear to your eye, there's something lacking. This is a person from the Western world who's there. He's on the ground. He's begging these soldiers who are stopping them from marching to Gaza, and he depicts his emotions about that.
Jazakallah so much for that, giving us what's really happening there. Jazakallah so much for, coming on and just being part of everything and also linking up with top guests. And for listeners out there, if you don't know, Honorable Imran Subrathi is the General Secretary for United for Palestine, and the President is also here for United for Palestine. They are the movers, the people behind the scenes, the marches which were organized, the protests, at the comrades, at everything. So Jazakallah so much for being part of this. I mean, you all are from the community, you are at the community radio station. So continue being part, uplifting the Ummah and educating us. And inshallah, may the Almighty reward you for all that United for Palestine and you as an individual do.
Thank you so much, Sumaya. There's just one announcement that we want to make, and I think you and your radio station will pick it up. We are hosting, inshallah, next week, Saturday, Maulana Abdul Khalik Ali, who, as I indicated, is one of the persons who marched to Gaza, together his wife, will be in Durban. next weekend, together with Maulana Ibrahim Musa, who is a young activist for Palestine. And we, inshallah, United for Palestine, are putting together a program, and we've decided to have an amazing event next week, Saturday. So we're giving the heads up, and I'll call upon Abdul Valodi, the president for United for Palestine, to give an indication of the event that we're planning to have for next week, Saturday.
Shukran, Iman. Yes, the event, we're still at the planning stage. With the venue, it most probably will be at a hall or a masjid. That we're looking at the two, ideas that we put together. And I also foresee that we're also planning a march, a massive march that we're looking to have in the KZN area. We also, there's also work in progress currently right now, but that'll be one of the biggest marches ever that we've had in this city, inshallah.
Yes, and we're going to coin it Feed the Children of Gaza March. So inshallah, we're planning it, myself and the other EXCO member, together with Abdul Valodia, we're planning it for one of the areas is to go to the Mshlanga area.
Yo.
So it's called the Feed the Children of Gaza March.
Jazakallah so much, for imparting all that's going to happen. Jazakallah. This was spontaneous, but alhamdulillah, our listeners are thoroughly enjoying all the information, and they feel that they are right there in Gaza. We managed to get, our tech Sebeniso managed to get Sister Candy. Yes, Candy is our social media person. She's on the ground. She's always involved in area activism. Candy, welcome to Radio Al-Ansar special editions on Gaza. Can you tell us your emotions and your feelings right now with all that's happening?
Wow, my emotions and feelings I have no words. Obviously, it was very overwhelming, the amount of people that were there, the support that came through. People flew from all over the world. There are 80 countries represented, and that in itself is such a success that people have mobilized. People are frustrated with governments, we're frustrated with world leaders, and we're taking it into our own hands to try and deliver aid.
Right now, everyone's on social media, everyone's watching the news, international news, global news. We have people, citizens, activists, individuals who are so passionate, not for any race or religion, but for humanity. What do you have to say to citizens from around the world who are not so much aware or part of this whole struggle?
I have nothing to say to them. I have absolutely nothing. No, there is no words, and I don't even want to direct my attention to people so useless.
No.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah, and it's something quite scary, heart-sore, evil, cruel. I don't know what other words I can use, but it's sickening to the gut of what's going on. We had Palestinian citizens guest in studio, and they came in when they found out about the show. It was not planned, it was not scripted, but they spoke about their very own nephew who took so long to basically fight for a sack of food or a box of food, and eventually he managed to get that without being injured or his life taken away. But when he reaches home, tired, exhausted, with this parcel or bale of food, he discovers that every single thing is rotten. And his aunt sitting in studio here was explaining it, and I could just see the tears in her eyes. And it is so sad and cruel of what's going on right now.
Yeah, it's absolutely heartbreaking. This is a live stream genocide, and we all know that the Holocaust and even little parts of the apartheid, people deny it and say we didn't know, but there is no denying this. It's live, it's broadcasted, and everybody knows someone who has died.
Sister Candy, thank you so much for linking up with us, and we're looking very forward to having you at the Radio Al Ansar once again. And we will definitely link up with you for future updates and what's going on right now with everyone around us and you. Thank you once again.
Okay, no problem. Take care.
Thank you. That was Sister Candy, our social media person and someone who is an activist and right out there for human rights. Our next guest, who we managed and got her, Dr. Lubna Nadvi. Yes, Dr. Lubna Nadvi is an academic and analyst who has been vocal on issues of justice, international law, and growing failures of global accountability in the face of Gaza genocide. Welcome to our special edition on Gaza. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yes, you're talking to me, your host, Sister Sumaya. Okay, I think we have an echo. So our tech will probably try to get through to Dr. Nadvi once again. We'll be taking a short ad break and we'll try to link up with her once again.
You will be free. Ya Rabbi, we call you. Oh, please set them free. It's the same old story, different day. They're just hoping for a change. They just wanna be treated like humans. They just wanna live a simple life. They just wanna go outside. Nothing's falling from the sky. Tired of those high goodbyes. They should know that their prayers never go to waste. 'Cause Allah hears. He is everything, and He does not forget. Justice will come to the Holy Land. Palestine, 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 you will be free. Ya Rabbi, we call you. Oh, please set them free. Oh, I'm begging, please. Without your help, we're nothing, we'll just bleed. You're the only one who can set them free. Take the pain away. Palestine, 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 you will be free. Ya Rabbi, we call you. Oh, please set them free.
Sunnah a Day, proudly brought to you by Sunpick, 100% pure sunflower cooking oil. Sunpick, cook more with less.
Cool on its own.
Sunnah a Day, proudly brought to you by Sunpick, 100% pure sunflower cooking oil. Sunpick, cook more with less.
Imagine this. You're putting together a 7-color meal, from the creamy pasta to the glazed carrots and flavorful onion gravy. This entire meal is made with our 100% pure extra virgin olive oil from our La Familia range, bringing outstanding quality and taste to your kitchen. Shop La Familia 100% pure extra virgin olive oil at any leading supermarkets near you. La Familia, heart of the home.
This hadith is sponsored by Ashraful Aid, International Humanitarian Organization.
حديث أدي قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من تواضع لله رفعه الله. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, he who humbles himself for the sake of Allah, Allah will elevate him in rank. Being humble means to believe that others are better than you. This will help you in serving others. If you have a high position or lots of wealth, then you should be more careful, because these qualities can create pride in your heart.
This hadith is sponsored by Ashraful Aid, International Humanitarian Organization.
Are you looking for a meaningful way to fulfill your zakat obligation? Look no further than Ashraful Aid. With our trusted track record, your zakat reaches those who need it the most in the most honorable and dignified manner. Visit our website at www.ashrafulaid.org.
Follow us on Instagram at Radio Al Ansar.
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, welcome to Radio Al-Ansar, our special edition right now with all that's happening in Gaza. Everyone's fully aware of the march, of the protests, of the globe. Everyone waiting at the borders of Rafah, hoping to enter. Yes, it's a pleasure, it's an honor, unannounced, just by the way, linking up directly to our Honorable Sister Fasia Hassan. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Radio Al-Ansar.
Wa alaikum salam. Thanks for having me.
Jazakallah, for being a true activist, a true leader. You are linking up with no secretary or PA telling us to get back right to us and making this show happen. Right now, you are fully aware of what's going on. Tell us, June 16 year in South Africa, how is it that what's happening right now in Gaza, looking at our country with apartheid, June 16th, why is it so important for us, for the youth, especially in South Africa and just the general citizen?
So tomorrow is June 16th and it marks the 1976 youth uprising, which obviously is not in Soweto, but it marked a really important moment in our history of young people who said, well, we're going to stand up against apartheid, we're going to stand up against Bantu education, against Afrikaans as a medium of instruction. And why it's so important and so relevant is that we have a country now and a world that obviously is not perfect, that is raging with injustice and inequality. And it requires us as young people, but also as society, to stand up and do something about it. And so in the same way, on the 16th of June, 1976, when young students and young people woke up and took a very firm stand against violence and against inequality and apartheid, it is now the same thing. It is now a situation in which we in the world do need to stand up. And we must, of course, tie it also to the march, which we'll talk about in today's interview. But it's ultimately, all of these struggles are linked. Those who are trying to break the siege in Gaza, those who are fighting for inequality in South Africa, the work that we're doing all over the world, in fact, all of our struggles are linked.
Okay. Do you looking at the youth, you are one of our youngest MPs. Tell us, lots of us, when we look at the youth or when we look at people in leadership positions, generally the public do not respect them. And it's very difficult to command respect. But everyone listens to you and you are heard. So what advice do you have for our future leaders, our youth, South African youth, when it comes to bringing change in our country, in our nation?
Yeah, look, it's a tough one. We have a system, and it's not just a political system. You see it across sectors, whether it's the private sector or NGOs or even in our, Islamic scholar spaces, where young people are not well represented. There's not a lot of us who are occupying those spaces in terms of leadership positions. And I do wonder if it's a greater culture in the country or just a greater culture that we tend to experience where young people were always told to wait our turn. We're always told, well, you're too young to do this. You need the experience. You need this. You need that. And if we had listened to the same people who said that to us, we would never have actually started Fees Must Fall. We would never have run for the SRC. And ultimately, I would never have come into parliament as one of the youngest MPs, or even in the previous administration, when I was the youngest member of the provincial legislature in Gauteng, chairing a portfolio committee. And so the point that I'm making, and maybe the advice, is that whenever everyone tells you you can't do it, prove them wrong. Because not only is there evidence to show that we can, but also because we want a different world and a different life in a different South Africa. We are unique in that we've been born post-apartheid. We are living in a world, or have grown up in a world, where digital tech is literally a part of who we are. The advent of artificial intelligence or big data, all of that kind of stuff is a fundamental part of our identity as young people. And of course, people who haven't grown up in that kind of context will never quite understand what it's like to be us or what our lived experiences are. And that's why it's so important for us to raise our voice and speak. And that doesn't just mean around parliament. It means, in your social circle, at home, if there's a particular issue you want to raise, if you want to, if you're a school learner and there's something that you're not happy about at the school, raise the issue, write a memorandum, or find a way in which you can get involved in your community, because that's where all of us started and continue to do our work. We sometimes think that it's only parliament or political parties where you can be an activist. And that's most certainly not the case.
Yeah.
The majority of activism comes from our communities.
Okay, we have one of your colleagues, Honorable Imran Sabrati, who would also like to ask you a question.
Assalamualaikum, Fasiya. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation to join us at such short notice. I know you mentioned you have a branch general meeting and you've taken some time to be with us. Jazakallah. Thank you so much, Fasiya. Fasiya, maybe just to link and take you to Gaza, you spoke about the Soweto uprising and the importance of tomorrow as Youth Day. And we know that youth in Gaza are the ones that are actually defending the cause of Palestine. Maybe let's take you to Gaza and share with our listeners, what role have youth played for the emancipation and the freedom of Palestine? And what is your reflections on the march to Gaza by civil society? And maybe how does it expose the ineffectiveness of governments around the world?
It's quite right. Unfortunately, we've seen governments, particularly obviously in the West, there's no surprise there, but unfortunately also in the Muslim world, right, where we've seen we feel, or frankly, that they're not doing enough to put an end to the genocide and an end to the occupation. And so we're seeing people from all walks of life saying, well, we're not just going to watch this live stream genocide on our screens. We're going to do something about it. And we're going to actually go there and try and break the siege. We saw people in the Freedom Flotilla trying to break the siege by sea. We know that they were kidnapped by the Israeli regime and later deported. And why I think this march is so important, and I think so apt even for us in South Africa, linking it to Youth Day, it's exactly what brought our own freedom in South Africa. Citizens and people on the ground saying they're going to do something about it. And I think it's hugely symbolic to move from Tunisia all the way across. And as we move closer and closer to the Rafah crossing, that the numbers grow. I mean, they started off as a smaller group and now they're well within the thousands. People are flying in from all over the world. And the very important point here.
Sister Fasiya Hassan, Jazakallah, once again spontaneously linking up with us on Radio Al-Ansar. May you continue to motivate our future leaders, our future activists, and may we as South Africans become better citizens. Yes, that was our Honorable Fasiya Hassan. We are linking up now with Sister Dr. Lubna Nadwi, an academic and analyst who has been vocal on issues of justice, international law, and the growing failures of global accountability in the face of Gaza genocide. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Radio Al-Ansar and joining us for this link up. Do we have Sister Nadwi online? Okay, we seem to have lost Sister Nadwi again. But inshallah, our tech will he will constantly try to get a link up with her. Brother Volodya, I'm putting you on the spot here. You were not invited, but you came here as this is your community radio station, and you are so passionate when it comes to United for Palestine, literally and figuratively, you being the president of United for Palestine. For many who do not know, you're a mover and shaker when it comes to putting Palestine, the cause, and what's going on nationally in our country. Since tomorrow is Youth Day, and Sister, our Honorable Fasiya Hassan told us, enlightened us. But when it comes to youth, just looking at it maybe from an Islamic perspective, because a lot of our Muslim youth are not involved when it comes to being in leadership positions in our country. What advice or motivation you have for our South African youth to take up and stance for what is right?
I think our youth, as we see on the ground, whenever we have any marches or protests, take for example the Comrades Marathon. Youth could have played such a huge role up there. Our youth thinks it's business as usual to be sitting at home, playing with their phones, messaging all over. Youth need to become more active, exactly like June 16th. When you go back to the June 16th struggle, and we look at the youth, the role that they played to turn this country around. We need our youth to be more active on the ground with regards to activism, with regards to political education. We don't find youth in political spheres.
Yeah.
All our youngsters are all goes, youngsters that are in school. They don't learn, they don't want to learn politics.
Yeah.
Politics will be a very important role for our youth to play because they're going to be our future leaders.
Exactly.
Right? If you look like Fassia Hassan, she was very, very vocal when she was in university with Fees Must Fall. She started that campaign with Fees Must Fall, and it started trending. And based on her activism, today she's sitting in parliament, and she's the person sitting now and making decisions for all, including the youth. So that's how important it is.
Yeah, Jazakallah. Right now, messages are coming on, and a message just came to me. Lovely show. Absolutely amazing for a local radio station for covering such points. I'm not watching Al Jazeera. I'm listening to Radio Al Ansar. Keep up the good work, all of them. Well, I'd like to thank everyone who's working here behind the scenes. We have Sister Salma Kazi, we have Sibani So, and we have our guest who just came into studio again, unannounced, unplanned. There were sisters from Palestine, Sister Fassia Hassan, our Honorable Subrati and Fassia Hassan, Abdul Valodia, and also other guest, Professor Yusuf. We are now linked up with Dr. Manjra. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And, there's so much going on. But before I continue, I'd like to thank you for, waiting and linking up with us. There's so much going on right now in Gaza. Your views, your opinions on what's happening and your involvement.
I think, I think most people are aware of the brutal siege of Gaza, as well as the genocide that's continuing in Gaza. But I think what's remarkable at the moment is the global march to Gaza, where participants from 80 countries have converged in Egypt to march to the Rafah border to get the Egyptian authorities to open the Rafah border to allow humanitarian aid to enter Gaza to feed the starving population of Gaza, which has been subjected to a brutal siege. Unfortunately, the participants of this global march to Gaza have been stopped from proceeding to the border by the Egyptian authorities. Many have been arrested, their passports confiscated, and some of them have been deported to their home countries.
Looking ahead, what is the best possible outcome of this march? And what's the most realistic one? I mean, let's be honest, given what we have seen thus far.
I think if the march was allowed to proceed, it would have succeeded. But unfortunately, we know that the Egyptian authorities took the orders from the Zionist entity not to allow the march to proceed because they mentioned that it was entering a militarized zone. I think, the brutal siege on Gaza has to end because the population of 2 million inhabitants of Gaza are starving. They are in urgent need of humanitarian aid, and all the borders must be open, and humanitarian aid should enter unhindered without any interference from either the Egyptians or the Zionist entity. I'm sure most of your listeners are aware that there are only borders with two countries with Gaza, One is with Israel, which is a Zionist entity, and the other one is with Egypt through the Rafah border. And both of these have been completely closed to the population of Gaza, thereby depriving them of vital food and humanitarian aid, which is required by the 2 million population of Gaza.
Do you know, looking ahead, we spoke about the possible outcomes. You know, organizers have failed, and that's, now time for direct civil action. Do you agree? And what would civil disobedience look like in this context?
Well, I think as far as possible, the 10,000 participants in the global march wanted it to be a non-violent, organized protest at the Rafah border. They did not want to engage in civil disobedience because that would incur the wrath of the Egyptian authorities. But despite them repeatedly mentioning that this is a peaceful march, they've been brutally attacked. The Egyptian authorities have set upon them thugs and criminals who assaulted many of the protesters, and some of them needing medical attention. So I think it's very, very, very difficult in a situation where there's so much of oppression to for a process of civil disobedience to continue.
Jazakallah, for linking up with us and as an activist and someone who has been involved as a physician, as an academic, you have long worked with intersections of health, justice, and global solidarity. You bring principles and clarity, from a deep historic awareness at this moment. May the Almighty bless you, and may you continue linking up with us and imparting your knowledge. Once again, thank you for linking up with us. That was Dr. Manjra.
Jazakallah khairan.
Okay, we will be trying to link up once again with Sister Dr. Nadvi. Yes, for those who do not know, Sister or Dr. Nadvi is an academic, an analyst who has been vocal on issues of justice, international law, and the growing failures of global accountability in the face of Gaza genocide. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Radio Al-Ansar.
Ji, wa alaikum salam. Jazakallah for having me on your show.
We finally got you crystal clear and online. Dr. Nadvi, there's so much going on right now. Despite massive global outrage, Israel continues its siege almost unchallenged. With the ICJ and ICC involved, why does accountability still feel so far out of reach?
So there are many ways to analyze and explain it. I mean, basically what you have is Israel is the perpetrator of genocide, and then you have those that are the enablers of genocide. And basically, countries like the United States, Egypt, and others who support Israel, supply it with arms and financing to continue with its genocide, are the perpetrators. So the reason that there's no accountability is because Israel is not being held accountable, and there are those countries that are enabling its genocide. So we actually need to, apart from boycotting Israel, you need to boycott countries like America and Egypt. You need to boycott their products. You need to send a very strong message that it's not okay for them to be supporting Israel. And accountability requires that we actually take some really strong action. The boycott movement is something that has been there for some time. We've seen how it was successful in bringing down apartheid South Africa, and that is where we as citizens have to actually be showing our sort of strength. We need to keep our we need to refrain from spending on products that support Israel, and this is where we are going to see accountability when we really start getting very serious. Some of us have embarked on projects like Remove Apartheid products from our shelves. So, the citizens and the people on the ground have to actually talk with their money now and basically do what they have to do.
Dr. Natvi, what impact does it have when people like Mandela's grandson or high-profile diplomats who, resign in protests step into activism? Can public moral leadership still shift the needle?
Well, yes, you have, public figures like Manla Mandela who are there, and effectively we saw videos from him where he was talking about how his passport and the passport of several others were confiscated while they were in Cairo. It's been circulating widely. It seems like the Egyptian authorities don't even care who's there. I don't know who it will take to for them to listen. For example, does the Pope have to, physically go to Cairo to, make a difference to this entire situation? So I think that you had Greta Thunberg, for example, well-known environmental activist who was on the Madeleine boat. The Israeli authorities deported her. So it doesn't seem to matter to these countries how famous the individuals are that are on these boats. But perhaps it will take the heads of state of certain countries to physically gather outside the Rafah border. I'm not sure what else will make the Egyptian authorities open Rafah border in order for all of those aid trucks to go in. So we as the people have to keep going. And the famous ones amongst us, the celebrities, the activists, the politicians even. For example, can we take a plane full of South Africans with President Cyril Ramaphosa as the head of our delegation and land in Cairo? We've got to think creatively. Can we do these things? And maybe that's what we need to be actually doing in order for this situation change.
Well, Dr. Lubna Nadvi, Jazakallah, thank you for linking up with us and joining us this morning on special edition on the news of Gaza. Definitely looking forward to linking up once again with you and imparting your knowledge. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah, thank you very much.
Well, today we heard from journalists, humanitarians, and academics, all aligned by a single devastating truth. Gaza is bleeding and the world cannot look away. The global march to Gaza is more than a protest. It's a people's tribunal, a public outcry, a defense of silence and whether or not those marches reach Rafah. Their message already has, been said. Thank you for joining us on this critical journey. This is not just a protest. It is a message of unwavering support for Gaza and its people. No to the displacement of Palestinian people and no to the liquidation of the Palestinian cause. Activists on both sides emphasize justice, sovereignty, and solidarity. No to displacement, open Rafah, stop the genocide. And thank you once again for joining us for this critical journey. Until next time, may we walk with courage, speak with clarity, and never accept injustice as normal. Assalamu alaikum from me, Sumaya Khan, till we meet again.
Radio Ansaar.